Blood dripped from Zeus's powerful jaws as he stood between Emma Walker and certain death, his massive frame trembling not from fear, but from raw determination. The mountain lion's snarls echoed through Montana's wilderness. But what happened? In the next 72 hours would leave the entire medical community speechless. No one could have predicted that a desperate fight for survival would lead to a discovery that would shake the foundations of veterinary science. They call it the miracle of Bitterroot Valley now. What began as a routine morning hike erupted into a savage battle between a loyal German shepherd and one of nature's deadliest predators. But it wasn't the fight that made headlines across the nation. It wasn't even Zeus's incredible bravery that stunned the world. It was what doctors discovered afterward, something in his blood that would change everything. 3 years before that fateful morning, Emma had found Zeus abandoned and frightened, his large paws and oversized ears promising the powerful guardian he would become. She could not have known then that this simple act of kindness would not only save her life, but would unlock a medical mystery that had puzzled scientists for decades. Their story became more than just a tale of survival. It became a testament to how a single moment of courage could lead to a breakthrough that would save countless lives. In the rugged terrain of Montana's Bitterroot Valley, where civilization met wilderness in an uneasy truce, Emma and Zeus had built their life together. Their modest cabin, surrounded by towering pines and mountains that scraped the sky, became more than just a home. It became their sanctuary. Zeus, now a magnificent 100-pound German shepherd, took his role as protector with unwavering seriousness. His black and tan coat rippled over muscles honed by daily patrols of their property, his amber eyes constantly scanning for threats. Each morning followed the same routine. Zeus would wake before dawn, his keen senses already alert as Emma prepared for her work as a local veterinary technician. He would escort her to her truck, watch her leave, and spend his days guarding their home until her return. The locals knew them well. The quiet woman with the gentle smile and her imposing shadow of a dog who would rather play with children than intimidate strangers. But beneath Zeus's gentle demeanor lay the heart of a warrior. The signs were there, in small moments. The way he positioned himself between Emma and any perceived threat, how his ears would prick at the slightest unusual sound, the low growl that would rumble in his chest when something felt wrong. These instincts, embedded deep in his DNA, would soon be put to the ultimate test, and in the aftermath of that test, in the sterile confines of a medical laboratory, scientists would discover something that would transform the field of regenerative medicine forever. As the mountain mist clears and their story unfolds, one thing becomes crystal clear. Sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries come from our darkest moments, wrapped in fur and driven by a heart that knows no bounds. October brought a sharpness to the Montana air that particular morning. Emma, her hands steady from years of veterinary technician work, checked Zeus's collar before they set out. The morning sun caught something unusual in his fur, a strange, silvery sheen she had never noticed before, but she dismissed it as early frost as they began their weekend tradition of dawn hiking through the Bitterroot Valley. The forest felt different. The usual chorus of birdsong had fallen silent, replaced by an oppressive stillness that made Emma's skin prickle. Zeus, typically eager to investigate every scent, stayed unusually close. His muscles were taut, his ears constantly swiveling, tracking sounds Emma couldn't hear. As a vet tech, she had worked with hundreds of dogs, but she had never seen such focused alertness. 3 miles into their hike, they reached their usual resting spot. Emma settled on a fallen log, watching. Zeus paced the clearing with growing concern. His behavior was triggering memories of strange incidents at the clinic, how other animals always seemed unusually calm around him, how quickly he recovered from his annual shots compared to other dogs. Small oddities she had never quite understood. The attack came without warning. A blur of tawny fur exploded from the underbrush. A massive female mountain lion, all rippling muscle and lethal intent. Time slowed as Emma saw death approaching in a graceful arc. The predator's golden eyes fixed upon her with cold purpose. Zeus launched himself between them, his 100 pounds of muscle and devotion meeting the mountain lion mid-leap. The impact, sent both animals rolling across the forest floor, a savage dance of fur and fury. But something was different about this fight. Where the mountain lion's claws left deep gashes, Zeus's blood seemed to glisten strangely in the morning light, the wounds already showing signs of clotting that Emma's medical training told her were impossible. The clearing became a battlefield. Zeus fought with impossible stamina, each wound that should have slowed him seeming to fuel him instead. Emma's trained eye noticed things that defied explanation. Cuts beginning to close minutes after they were inflicted, his reactions getting faster instead of slowing from blood loss. The mountain lion, despite its superior size and natural weapons, seemed unable to land a decisive blow. Emma stood frozen, bear spray clutched in trembling hands, her medical mind struggling to process what she was witnessing. Zeus's injuries were behaving unlike anything she had seen in 15 years of veterinary work. His blood, spattering the fallen leaves, had an odd luminescence, and where it fell, the mountain lion seemed reluctant to step. As the fight intensified, Zeus's eyes began to glow with an almost phosphorescent light. The mountain lion's attacks grew desperate, as if it too sensed something unnatural about its opponent. Blood now coated Zeus's fur, but instead of weakening, each wound seemed to emit a faint, pulsing light that Emma's rational mind struggled to comprehend. What happened next would not only save their lives but would rewrite medical textbooks forever. As Zeus faced what should have been a killing blow, his body began to exhibit changes that would soon have scientists and doctors questioning everything they thought they knew about cellular regeneration. As the mountain lion lunged again, Emma's medical training couldn't process what she was witnessing. Zeus's wounds, which should have been catastrophic, were exhibiting behaviors she had never seen in 15 years as a veterinary technician. The blood seeping from his injuries had an otherworldly luminescence, and the tissue around each gash seemed to pulse with an unexplainable energy. Zeus fought with impossible strength, his body moving with a fluidity that defied the severity of his injuries. Where the mountain lion's claws had torn deep furrows across his chest, the blood flow was already slowing in a way that contradicted everything Emma knew about trauma medicine. Even more baffling, the wounds appeared to be emitting a faint, silvery glow that grew stronger with each passing minute. The mountain lion, perhaps sensing something unnatural about its opponent, began showing signs of hesitation. Its attacks became more cautious, especially when it came in contact with Zeus's blood. Emma watched in astonishment as drops of Zeus's blood left phosphorescent patterns on the forest floor, patterns that seemed to move with purpose rather than following the natural flow of liquid. The battle reached its turning point when the mountain lion locked its jaws around Zeus's shoulder. Any other dog would have been instantly incapacitated, but Zeus's response defied biological laws. Instead of weakening, his body began emanating a subtle but visible energy. The mountain lion released its grip suddenly, as if the very taste of Zeus's blood was repelling it. With one final extraordinary surge of strength, Zeus drove the predator back. The mountain lion, bleeding and visibly shaken by this unnatural opponent, finally retreated into the forest. But the victory came at a devastating cost. Zeus collapsed, his body bearing wounds that should have been instantly fatal. Emma rushed to his side, her trained hands moving instinctively to assess the damage. What she found made her question everything she knew about animal physiology. Despite injuries that had severed major blood vessels, Zeus remained conscious. His blood, instead of pooling normally, created intricate moving patterns wherever it touched his fur. The wounds themselves seemed to be attempting some kind of unprecedented healing process. As a vet tech, Emma had seen hundreds of animal injuries, but nothing like this. The tissue around Zeus's wounds was already showing signs of regeneration that should have taken days to appear. His blood, when she tried to clean it away, left a residue that glowed faintly under her hands. Every medical principle she had ever learned was being challenged by what she was witnessing. Zeus's breathing, though labored, remained steady despite injuries that should have been incompatible with life. His eyes, fixed on Emma with unwavering devotion, held an intelligence that seemed heightened by whatever transformation was occurring within his body. She knew she needed to get him to the clinic immediately, not just to save his life, but to understand the miraculous changes happening before her eyes. What they would discover in the next 24 hours would shake the foundations of veterinary medicine. Zeus's desperate fight for survival was about to reveal something that would change the way scientists understood animal biology forever. As Emma gathered her critically injured companion into her arms, she had no way of knowing that this terrible day would lead to a breakthrough that would save thousands of lives. Emma's tears mingled with the strange, luminescent blood on Zeus's fur as she struggled to carry her dying hero through the forest. His massive body, usually so full of strength and life, now felt like a crushing weight in her trembling arms. Yet somehow, despite injuries that should have been fatal, Zeus kept, his golden eyes fixed on her face as if his only concern was still her safety. "Please stay with me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I can't lose you. Not like this. Not after you saved my life." The blood seeping from his wounds left trails of silvery light on her clothes, each drop pulsing like a tiny heartbeat. As a vet tech, Emma had seen countless animal injuries, but nothing like this. Nothing that defied every medical principle she'd ever learned. Fate intervened in the form of Tom Peterson's pickup truck. The local ranger's face paled at the sight of them, Emma covered in glowing blood, Zeus's massive form barely clinging to life. But it was his next words that made Emma's heart skip. Dear God, what's happening to his wounds? Where the mountain lion's claws had torn through muscle and flesh, something extraordinary was occurring. The tissue seemed to be knitting itself together, emitting a soft, pulsing light that grew stronger with each passing minute. Tom's hands shook as he helped load Zeus into the truck, his eyes wide as the dog's blood left luminescent patterns across his skin. The small town of Bitterroot Valley had always taken care of its own, but the response to Zeus's condition was unprecedented. By the time they reached the clinic, word had spread, and crowds had gathered. Children who had grown up playing with the gentle giant were crying, their parents holding them close. Old Mr. Johnson, whose life Zeus had changed by visiting him, every day after his wife passed, stood vigil by the clinic door, prayer beads clutched in his weathered hands. Inside, Dr. Sarah Chen's initial professional detachment crumbled as she witnessed Zeus's impossible condition. In 30 years of veterinary medicine, she whispered, her voice trembling, I've never seen anything like this. His blood. It's doing something that should be impossible. The surgery room became a place of miracles and mysteries. Every person who came in contact with Zeus's blood reported the same strange sensation. A tingling warmth, followed by an inexplicable acceleration of their own minor cuts and bruises healing. The lab technicians kept running tests, their hands shaking as they handled samples that seemed to glow brighter under their touch. As night fell, Emma sat beside Zeus's unconscious form, her fingers buried in his fur, feeling his strong heart beating despite all odds. The monitors beeped steadily, each sound a defiance of medical science. Dr. Chen approached quietly, holding a tablet displaying test results that would soon shock the medical world. Emma, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, what we've found in Zeus's blood. It's going to change everything. Every single thing we thought we knew about healing. About life itself. She paused, looking at the gentle giant who had not only saved his owner, but was about to save countless others. The research teams are already on their way. They're calling it the miracle of Bitterroot Valley. The first hint of something extraordinary came at 3 a.m. in Bitterroot Valley's small veterinary clinic. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the blood sample under her microscope, her hands trembling as she adjusted the focus. Zeus's blood cells were behaving in ways that defied every medical principle she had learned in her 30 years of practice. They weren't just healing, they were transforming. Emma sat beside Zeus's recovery bed, her fingers intertwined in his fur. When Dr. Chen burst through the door, her face pale with disbelief. Emma, she whispered, you need to see this. On the screen behind her, Zeus's blood cells pulsed with an inner light, their structure unlike anything ever documented in medical history. But what happened next left everyone in the room speechless. When a young lab technician accidentally cut himself while handling one of Zeus's blood samples, the wound began healing before their eyes. Not just healing, regenerating. Skin, tissue, and even nerve endings reconstructed themselves in minutes rather than weeks. The security cameras captured the entire incident, footage that would soon be studied in medical institutions worldwide. News spread through the scientific community like wildfire. Within hours, specialists from major research hospitals were flying into Montana. Dr. James Morrison, the leading expert in regenerative medicine from Johns Hopkins, arrived first. His initial skepticism vanished the moment he witnessed Zeus's blood cells interact with damaged tissue samples. This isn't just accelerated healing, Morrison explained to the growing team of researchers, his voice tight with controlled excitement. These cells are exhibiting properties we've only theorized about. They're not just repairing damage, they're completely rebuilding tissue to its original state. He paused, looking at Zeus, who despite his recent near-fatal encounter, was already sitting up, his wounds almost fully healed. This could be the key to treating conditions we thought were permanent. Emma watched as her beloved companion became the center of the medical world's attention. Zeus, still protective despite his celebrity status, refused to let anyone draw blood samples unless Emma was present. His gentle nature remained unchanged, but there was a new awareness in his eyes, as if he understood the importance of what was happening. The breakthrough came on the fourth day. Dr. Chen discovered that Zeus's blood contained a previously unknown type of stem cell, one that could adapt to any type of tissue damage. More incredibly, these cells could replicate their healing properties in other organisms. The implications were staggering. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival in the Montana wilderness was evolving into one of the most significant medical discoveries of the century. The first human trial came sooner than expected. Little Sarah Williams, a local girl suffering from a severe spinal injury, was chosen with her parents' desperate consent. The medical board fast-tracked the approval due to her critical condition. Emma held Zeus close as they watched the procedure, tears streaming down her face as she remembered her own moments of desperation in the forest. The results defied every expectation. Within days, Sarah showed signs of nerve regeneration that should have been impossible. Within weeks, she took her first steps in 2 years. Zeus, as if understanding his role in this miracle, sat beside her during her physical therapy sessions, his presence a steady comfort as she learned to walk again. Teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand and replicate the unique properties in Zeus's blood. They discovered that his encounter with the mountain lion had somehow activated dormant genes, creating a healing capability that transcended normal biological limits. It wasn't just about physical healing. His blood carried properties that could revolutionize the treatment of degenerative diseases. What we're seeing here, Dr. Morrison announced at a packed press conference, isn't just a medical breakthrough. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we understand cellular regeneration. And we owe it all to a brave dog who was willing to sacrifice everything to protect his owner. Emma found herself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Zeus's sacrifice had unleashed. Her companion, who had already given everything to save her life, was now saving thousands more. Each successful treatment, each life changed, could be traced back to that terrifying moment in the forest when love and courage transformed into something miraculous. Zeus, now fully recovered, seemed unchanged by his newfound importance. He still insisted on his morning patrols of their property, still gently played with neighborhood children, and still watched over Emma with unwavering devotion. But now, his blood carried hope for people who had lost all hope. His sacrifice, continuing to create miracles long after the scars of his battle had faded. The announcement came on a snowy December morning, 6 months after Zeus's battle with the mountain lion. Dr. Morrison stood before a packed auditorium at Johns Hopkins Medical Center, his hands trembling as he held up a single vial of glowing liquid. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice cracked with emotion, "what you're seeing isn't just medicine. It's impossible made possible." The room erupted in gasps as the video played behind him, a real-time recording of severed nerve endings regenerating within minutes. But it was the next revelation that brought the audience to tears. A young girl in a wheelchair rolled onto the stage, Sarah Williams, the first recipient of Zeus's miracle treatment. As cameras flashed, she stood up and walked. Across the stage, each step a testament to what everyone had called impossible. Emma sat in the front row, Zeus pressed against her legs, his tail gently wagging. Her mind flashed back to that blood-soaked morning in the forest, to the terror and desperation. Now, watching Sarah walk, she understood why Zeus's blood had glowed that day. It wasn't just blood, it was evolution itself, triggered by a love so pure it had rewritten the laws of biology. The medical breakthroughs came faster than anyone could have predicted. A compound in Zeus's blood, now named Canis miraculum, showed properties that defied explanation. It didn't just heal, it restored. Blind dogs regained sight, paralyzed cats walked again. But what stunned the scientific community most was its ability to adapt across species. At the San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary, cameras captured the moment a critically endangered condor, its wings shattered beyond conventional repair, took flight after treatment. In Australia, an entire population of Tasmanian devils facing extinction from a deadly facial tumor disease began showing signs of complete recovery. Each miracle could be traced back to one dog's desperate fight to protect his owner. Letters flooded their Montana home. Emma spent evenings reading them to Zeus, tears falling as she shared stories of lives transformed. A mother in Seattle wrote about hearing her son's voice for the first time after a car accident. A veterinarian in Texas documented a horse walking again after a devastating injury. Zeus would listen, his intelligent eyes seeming to understand the magnitude of what his sacrifice had unleashed. The Nobel Committee's announcement was unprecedented. Never had an animal's contribution been considered for the prize in medicine. During the ceremony, Dr. Morrison broke protocol, inviting Zeus and Emma onto the stage. This discovery, he announced to the global audience, began with a simple act of love, a dog's determination to protect his owner at any cost. What we witnessed next stunned the world and revolutionized medicine forever. Research facilities worldwide began reporting new applications for Zeus's miracle cells. A breakthrough in Alzheimer's treatment emerged from Tokyo. In London, doctors successfully reversed spinal cord damage. Each success story added to Zeus's legacy, transforming him from a local hero into a symbol of hope for millions. Perhaps most touching were the changes in their own community. The children's ward at Bitterroot Valley Hospital, once a place of whispered prayers and quiet tears, now rang with laughter. Zeus visited every week, his gentle presence bringing comfort to young patients receiving his life-changing treatment. The walls were covered with photos of his battle scars, reminding everyone that the most stunning miracles often begin with a single act of courage. Life in Bitterroot Valley would never be the same for Emma and Zeus. Their morning walks, once simple routines, now carried a deeper meaning. Zeus, his battle scars barely visible beneath his thick fur, still patrolled their property with the same dedication, but his legacy touched every corner of their world. The local veterinary clinic where Emma worked transformed into a state-of-the-art research facility. Dr. Chen named it the Zeus Center for Regenerative Medicine, where veterinarians worldwide came to learn about the miracle that began with one dog's sacrifice. In the lobby stood a bronze statue of Zeus, not in a fighting stance but in his characteristic protective posture, watching over all who entered. Emma often found herself pausing during rounds, watching Zeus interact with the animals in recovery. His presence had a calming effect that went beyond medicine. Something in his gentle demeanor, in the way he approached each injured animal, spoke of a deeper understanding. The same blood that had saved countless lives seemed to give him a unique connection with those still healing. Their bond, forged in terror and transformed through miracle, grew stronger with each passing day. Zeus never left Emma's side during her lectures to medical students, his head resting against her leg as she explained how one desperate morning in the forest had changed the face of medicine forever. His eyes, still bright with intelligence and devotion, would meet hers during these moments, sharing a silent understanding of their journey. The community embraced them as their own miracles. Children who once only knew Zeus as the friendly dog in the park now knew him as the hero who helped make their grandparents walk again, who gave their injured pets second chances. Local schools added his story to their curriculum, teaching young minds that the most extraordinary breakthroughs could come from the purest forms of love. Yet despite the fame and recognition, at the end of each day, they returned to their cabin, in the woods. There, Zeus remained simply Emma's protector, companion, and friend. His greatest joy was still their quiet moments together on the porch, watching the Montana sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed to mirror the miraculous glow his blood had shown on that fateful morning. In the end, what began as a desperate fight for survival became something far more profound, a testament to the extraordinary power of the bond between human and animal, and proof that sometimes the most stunning miracles come from the simplest acts of love. Want to discover more extraordinary stories of animals that change the world? Subscribe to our channel to experience more extraordinary stories of courage, love, and miracles. Never miss another tale that will touch your heart and inspire your soul.